ఓం శ్రీ గణేశాయ నమః. ఓం శ్రీ సరస్వత్యై నమః. ఓం శ్రీ గురుభ్యో నమః. ఓం సమస్తజనకల్యాణే నిరతం కరుణామయం నమామి చిన్మయం దేవం సద్గురుం బ్రహ్మవిద్వరం సద్గురుం బ్రహ్మవిద్వరం. ఓం సదాశివసమారంభాం శంకరాచార్యమధ్యమాం అస్మదాచార్యపర్యంతాం వందే గురుపరంపరాం. శంకరం శంకరాచార్యం కేశవం బాదరాయణం సూత్రభాష్యకృతౌ వందే భగవంతౌ పునః పునః. శృతిస్మృతిపురాణానాం ఆలయం కరుణాలయం నమామి భగవత్పాదశంకరం లోకశంకరం. నమశ్రీ శంకరానంద గురుపాదాంబుజన్మనే సవిలాసమహామోహగ్రాహగ్రాసైకకర్మణే. హరి ఓం. In the last series of Pañcadaśi talks, we have discussed about the entry of Atma into the body. So there was a question raised by Purvapakshi stating that how can Atma enter? Does he enter as Chidabhasa or first enter the mind and then mind enters the body? Because Shastra says Atma entered the body. It was no clarity was given there where the Atman entry into the body is directly or through as Chidabhasa he entered. So the discussion we saw that how the Srishti was created by Lord, and afterwards the entire all the forms are ready, but there is no chaitanyam in anything. At that time you can say that Bhagavan thought, all these are all dead, lying dead. How they become active? How consciousness can enter? So unless I enter into them, they are not enlivened. So Simanam Vidharya, he through the Brahmarandra Paramatma enters. That was discussed in Upanishads, in Aitriya Upanishad, etc. So that we have discussed last time. So about that entry. Now the question is asked in 38th verse by Purvapakshi. He says, Katam pravishto sangaschet srustirvasya katam vada mayikatvam tayostulyam vinashascha samastayoho. This is a very beautiful question asked by Purvapakshi. He says, now, katam pravishta asangaha schet. Now, avachedavadi, one who speaks about the Ghatakasha, Avachana Chaitanyam, they don't speak about Chidabhasa. We have discussed about it. Without bringing the Chidabhasa as a reflection of the pure consciousness in the subtle body, there is Avachedavada, where it's conditioned, the space conditioned by the pot. Similarly, the spirit is conditioned, the all-pervading consciousness is conditioned by the body, and that conditioning is called Jiva. So he raises a question. He says, Asanga Atma Katam Pravishtaha. That is the question. Asanga Atma, because Katam Pravishtaha Asangas Chet. Because Atma is what? Atma is all pervading. Atma is all pervading, number one. And it is Asangaha. It has no relationship. Think about it. So when it has no relationship, there is no Abhimana, there is no Ahankara in Atma. Unless there is an ego, unless there is a duality, how can you talk about entry? Think about it. So he says that how can this Asanga Atma, where Atman is actionlessness. There is no question of Sangha, attachment is not there. So it cannot relate itself to anything. So how can that Asanga Atma enter into a reflecting medium? What is the reflecting medium here? Mind and the body, etc. Mind is a reflecting medium. Then how can it enter? So how can Asanga Atma get related to the mind? When the Asanga Atma is relationless Atman, the consciousness, so all pervading, how can it get related? So there is a question. So how you talk about entry of Atman into the subtle body and then physical bodies? So Vijayaranya Muni says, if you ask such a question, Katam Pravishta Sangaschet, Vijayaranya Muni asked a counter question. See, if you are asking such an intelligent question, you think it's an intelligent question, I will ask you another question. Srushtirvasya Katam Vada. Now he says that question of entry can come only when? After creation. Think about it. Upanishad said, first Paramatma created the Jagat and all the bodies he created. And afterwards, he entered. So entry means what? Entry means only after the Srishti, after the creation. So Vijayaranya Muni says, then how did Asanga Atma create the Jagat? First you tell me that answer. First he created Jagat. Asanga Atma, that Atma which is never attached to anything. It is detached, ever unattached. So unattached Atma, he could create the Srishti. How did he create the Srishti then? How did he create this entire creation? How did he create the world? So to create, anything you wanted to create, means what? The Paramatma should take up the role of a creator. Karana Karya Sambandha is there, no? Unless he is a Karana, how can he create? He is a cause. So that means he takes the position of the cause, then only he can create something, the effect which can come out of it. So therefore, you tell me, oh my dear, how did this Asanga Atma, relationless, detached or unattached Atma, which is all pervading, infinite, pure, eternal consciousness, create the Jagat first? Only after creating the Jagat, the entry of Atman is spoken about. Think. So, you tell me this. Then Purvapakshi answers. See that? Mayikatvam tayostulyam. Mayikatvam he says. He says Mayikatvam. Mayikatvam means what? Sir, Asanga Atma, in fact, he cannot create anything because he is by nature unattached. So unattached person cannot be the cause. He cannot create anything. So Atma cannot create anything which is real world. So beautiful, isn't it? Just think about it. So Asanga Atma, relationless Atma, unattached Atma, since it has no goal, there is nothing. So there is no, it is always detached. How can he create? So therefore, Asanga Atma can create this Jagat, not a real world, but Asanga Atma can create an apparent world. That Mayikatvam, it is called due to Maya. What is Maya? Agatana Gatana Patiyasi Maya. So that Maya is what all make that impossible things are made possible by Maya. So if we know this entire Jagat has come as Mayikatvam, the Purvapakshi answers, it is all apparent reality. Apparent reality. It is not real world that Bhagavan has created. So therefore, it's like a, creating Asanga Atma can create what? Asanga sand. You take the Rekistan, the desert. In the desert, you can see the mirage waters. So that desert is unattached to its creation. What it's created? It created what? A mirage water. So, when the creation of mirage water took place, is it really created or apparently created? It is Mayikatvam. Think about it. So, Asanga sand, the sand in the desert, in the peak summer, it can create an illusion of a lake or a pond, but it has no substance in it, but it can create. So, unattached. Similarly, the Asangatma can create the world. Who said? Purvapakshi said. What was the question? How did Asangatma enter the creation? Ujjayanamuni said, entry comes only after creation. Entry into the creation is possible only after creation. So you tell me first, how did he create? Then the Purvapakshi says, Mayikatvam, it is an apparent reality. It is not real reality. It is created by Maya. So he says, now I have answered your question, sir. Now you tell me your answer. Purvapakshi is asking, opponent is asking Vidyaranyamuni, the teacher. So now Vidyaranyamuni says that Tayostulyam. If you say that entry of Atman into the world is apparently done and not real, think. Creation is not real and apparent. Entry also is an apparent entry, it is not a real entry. Therefore, praveshaha api mayikaha bhavati. Tayostulyam vinashascha samastayoho. So, just as Mayika Srishti is possible, that apparent creation is possible, similarly, apparent entry also is possible. So, Paramatma entered into all this Srishti in the bodies, in the beings, as Chidabhasa. So, how Chidabhasa creation is real? No, Chidabhasa is mithya. Mithya. Apparent, unreal. So, entry is mithya. Samsara, therefore, and samsara also is mithya. As long as we are not awakened to that higher dimension of consciousness, as long as we have not discovered the substratum Kutastha Chaitanya as real Aham, I, so long we are buffeted, we are carried away in this samsara. So that means what? Just as Srishti is apparent to you, Vidyaranyamuni says, you agreed Srishti is apparent, Mayikatvam. Similarly, entry also is apparent. Vidyaranyamuni says, entry also praveshaha api tayostulyam. So, just as the Ishvara created the Maya Jagat, entry also is apparent only. It is not real. So, this is how Mayikatvam tayostulyam vinashasya samastayoho. Now, this view is, Vidyaranyamani's view is now supported by Upanishad. What is Upanishad? It is taken from Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi Samvada, where the dialogue between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi takes place in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Maitreyi, his wife, asks so many questions. That's a very beautiful portion in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Now, he says, Samutthayaish bhutebhyah tanyevanuvinashyati vispashtamiti maitreye yajnavalkya uvachahi. Think. Samutthayaish bhutebhyah tanyeva anuvinashyati vispashtamiti maitreye yajnavalkya uvacha. Now, Yajnavalkya, the sloka meaning we will see first. Yajnavalkya uvacha vispashtam uvacha. As very clearly Yajnavalkya has declared to whom? To Maitreyi, his wife, who was very devoted and asking so many questions to Yajnavalkya Rishi. What did he say, Yajnavalkya? He said very clearly, this pure consciousness is there. It attains jivatva. Apparently, it attains jivatva. How did it attain jivatva? as entry into Chidabhasa, then identifying with what? Panchakoshas. See, Samuthaya Esha Bhutebhya, in association with the Panchamahabhutas. So they, Paramatma only, the pure consciousness enters as Chidabhasa and then identifies with the sense organs and peeps out through the sense organs and gets identified with the external Jagat and treating it as real and completely carried away by the effects of samsara. And Yajnavalkya says, Maitreya, then Samuthaya Esha Bhutebhya Tanyeva Anuvinashyati. Afterwards, what? After the discovery of the truth. So, this Chidabhasa, Jivatva, it gets destroyed. So, Jivatva gets destroyed when we awaken to the truth. So, now here, very clearly, we should understand there are two consciousness. One is the original consciousness, other is reflected consciousness. And we are getting pramana for this in Upanishads only. One consciousness is what? Kutastha Chaitanya, which is eternal, Satyam, all pervading, always it is there. Other is Mithya. Chidabhasa is Mithya. And one consciousness is Nityam, eternal. Other consciousness is Anitya. Only when mind is there and the Chidabhasa reflection is formed. When the Vritti goes down, Chidabhasa also goes down. General Chidabhasa will remain in waking plane, but for Pratyeka Vritti, the Chidabhasa is rising and dissolving with the Vritti. Therefore, it is Anityam. Think. So, this Chidabhasa only is taking birth. Is supposed to take birth, what? When the mind is born, and supposed to dissolve when the thought or mind goes away. In deep sleep state, no mind, no Chidabhasa. Though subtle vrittis are there, subtle bhasa is there, but we are not entering into that particular thing. So when somebody is dying or died, what happens? The conscious, reflected consciousness goes out. So all pervading consciousness remain there. Therefore we say, no, Shiva is Shiva only. Why? Shiva Tattva is auspicious consciousness, Sadharana Chaitanyam, is always there in the body, in the dead body. It is pure existence. But the Vishesha Chaitanya is there, Chidabhasa, that goes out. So that is the truth. Now in this teaching, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad teaching, Yajnavalkya did not specify to Maitreyi. He did not differentiate between Abhasa Chaitanya, Chidabhasa and the original consciousness, which is substratum, which is Adhara, Adhisthana Chaitanya. He did not specifically mention, he simply said the consciousness perishes. Think. When the body is died, the consciousness perishes, he said. Then Maitreyi got doubt. One time you say consciousness is eternal, and sometimes you say the consciousness perishes. So she is shocked. Then the discussion comes that there is a Abhasa Chaitanyam, because when the mind is not there, the Chidabhasa goes away. Where reflecting medium is required for the reflection to form. So when the reflecting medium itself is dissolved, though temporarily, that we will see later on. So what perishes is reflected consciousness. So therefore, there is a Chidabhasa, it is reflected consciousness, it is temporary, it rises with the mind, the body, and the mind dissolves, it doesn't exist, it also dissolved. All this is said in where? In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The dialogue between Maitreyi and Yajnavalkya in 4th chapter. Therefore, he says that Yajnavalkya very clearly told to Maitreyi. So the pure consciousness alone is attaining jivahood by pravesha, by entry into the subtle body. Into the body it was said. In Aittariya Upanishad very clearly says Simana Vidharya. It entered. So that becomes individual. So having said this much, and when the body is destroyed, it gets destroyed, meaning the reflected consciousness gets destroyed, not the original consciousness. It cannot be destroyed. It is not created. It is eternal. So this conclusion now, the particular thought will be concluded with this shloka on 40th shloka. What he says, Avinasyayamatmeti kutastha pravivechitaha matra samsarga ityevam asangatvasya kirtanat. So Avinashi ayam atma iti kutastha pravivechitaha pravivechitaha. This kutastha chaitanya is separated. As what? Avinashi ayam atma. So what about Chidabhasa? Chidabhasa as a janma and marana. Every thought, Chidabhasa is created, and every thought when it dissolved, Chidabhasa is dissolved. So it has a janma and it has also a marana. Think. So therefore, Avinashi ayam atma. That means what? Chidabhasa, can Chidabhasa exist without the reflecting medium? No. So Chidabhasa is always like the reflection in the mirror is always associated with reflection. Reflection in the mirror is always associated with the reflection, with the reflecting medium, the mirror. Can you have a reflection without a mirror? No. So Chidabhasa is always attached to or associated with, inseparably tied to whom? The reflecting medium. Therefore, one of the features of Chidabhasa is what? It is sasanga. What about Kutastha? Nissanga. Chidabhasa is sasanga. It is attached, associated. It is tied to reflecting medium, the mind. Think. Can it Chidabhasa exist without the reflecting medium, mind? No, it cannot. Anyway, further discussions in Shastras are there. So now, second feature of Chidabhasa is what? Constantly changing. Changing. For every thought, Chidabhasa is forming, Chidabhasa is dissolved. So it appears like jig, 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 jig. Every thought, it just appears and disappears. And this locus of continuity is creating an illusion of individuality. So original consciousness is asangatvam and nityatvam, for which we have got a support from Shruti Vakya. So Atma, Avinashi, Atma, Avinashi, Ayam Atma, Avinashi, iti Kutastaha, Pravivechitaha. It is very clearly, distinctly separated. Kutastha Chaitanya saying that this is indestructible, eternal, nityam and asangatvam. So this is what is said in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad only. Shruti Mata says. Think. So, in another one it says, Matra asamsarga ityevam asangatvasya kirtana. Matra asamsarga. Matra asamsarga means Matra asamsarga. Evam iti evam asangatvasya kirtana. Matra means what? Tanmatras, and out of tanmatras only are born our sense organs, everything. Panchamahabhutas. Tanmatras are Panchamahabhutas only. Panchikarana, Panchikruta Tanmatras is called Srushti, Bhautika Srushti, physical world. So Tanmatras, from there only sense organs and everything, all Indriyas are born. So Matra refers to what? Sukshma Sharira, subtle body, and the mind also, senses also, all those things. Matra Sparshastu Kaunteya Sitosha Sukha Dukkadaha. Agamapayano anityaha tantritikshasva bharata Bhagavad Gita. So matra means what? Sense organs. Tanmatras, because their origin as is tanmatras. So asamsarga means what? This Kutastha Chaitanya is not associated with matra. It is relationless. Asamsarga. So that consciousness, Upanishad speaks about Kutastha Chaitanyam, not Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness, but Kutastha Chaitanyam is unassociated. It is not associated, attached to the matra or the tanmatras or sense organs, etc. So that is the conclusion. So very distinctly said. So in us there are two. This is what is being depicted in Mundaka Upanishad also, where it was said that there is a tree, there are two birds. One bird is Nischala, upper bird on the upper branch, very calm and quiet and peaceful. Then lower bird is eating all kinds of fruits, bitter and sweet, sour, and it is suffering. So Jiva is eating various experiences, going through various experiences. And in between the lower bird looks up and then looks at higher bird and gets inspired. No, I think that bird is very beautiful, calm and serene and quiet, and so slowly it goes from branch up to another branch up, and slowly it reaches him and it also attains peace. So that's how very beautifully said in Mundaka Upanishad also. So very clearly these two consciousness about Jiva Chaitanyam, Chidabhasa, and the Kutastha Chaitanyam, which is the substratum, clearly, distinctly separated, very beautifully explained in our Upanishads, thereby talking about Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa Pramana we get only in Upanishads only. So Chidabhasa is required to understand the Jiva Karma, the Jiva Gati. All these things are possible to explain after destroying the physical body also. Destruction of physical body also is possible only when we talk about reflected consciousness. That's what has been told. So therefore, this Jiva is immortal. He says now, immortality of Jiva is relative. It is not permanent. That beautiful point will come now. Jiva is not eternal. Jivatva, Jiva as Brahman is eternal. That beautiful topic now comes. What do you mean by Jiva? That will give, when a lot of examples are there, we can discover it. So this is the topic now which we are going to enter into it. So nice it is. We will see now. What is that? Jivapetam vavakila shariram mriyate nasaha ityatra navimokshorthaha kintu lokantare gatihi. So just now, in 39th verse, just 2 slokas before, what did it say? Yajnavalkya say? The Chidabhasa is destroyed when the reflecting medium body disappears or dies. That's what he said. Anuvinashyati visana. Now this question is asked. So in the statement of the scriptures, Jiva apetam vavakila shariram riyate. Now, they devoid of this Jiva apetam. The body without Jiva, the body dies. Now, earlier what it was said, Jiva perishes when body dies. So does it mean Jiva really become non-existent when the body dies? So then there Yajnavalkya explained the meaning of Chidabhasa, etc., etc. So it doesn't mean the Jiva dying. What does it mean is what? That's what Jiva apetam vavakila Shariram mriyate na saha. So, when the scripture state that body without the jiva inside, that body dies, not the jiva inside. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna spoke about it. So this jiva himself does not die. So then what happens? Iti atra na vimokshortaha. So it is when the body dies, jiva goes away. It is not final liberation. It is not mukti we are talking about. Kintu lokantare gatihi. But what we talk about jiva, it travels from one plane of consciousness to other plane of consciousness. One loka to other loka. This we will analyze now. So in Maitreyi Brahmana discussion between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi, we said Chidabhasa is what? Perishable. We say it perishes with the mind. Because when the mind is reflecting medium, the reflecting medium is destroyed, Chidabhasa also gets destroyed. Think. So who is Chidabhasa? Chidabhasa is what? Jiva. We saw already, Chidabhasa is nothing but Jiva. So once we say Chidabhasa is perishable, when the mind is destroyed, the body is destroyed, since Chidabhasa is what you meant by Jiva, implies Jiva is destroyed, implies Jiva is perishable. That's what is the doubt. Because you said Jiva is what? Chidabhasa. Can Chidabhasa independently exist without the reflecting medium? No. Therefore, when the reflecting medium is dropped or dissolved or dies, then Jiva also should become perishable. So, Purvapakshi is remembering 39th sloka, where Brihadaranyaka Upanishad was quoted. So he says, when the real, in that case, body dies, Jiva also will go away. Because Jiva can exist only when the mind is there. Body means when I am talking subtle body. Subtle body also goes away because mind is dissolved every day. But in Chandogya Upanishad, we have studied Chandogya, there a tree example comes. It says that tree is cut, the branches are cut, flowers are cut, the fruits are cut, everything cut. So the branches perish, but not the root. Roots are there. When you cut everything, branches and all, again they will branch out because roots are not destroyed. So the tree comes out. The tree survives. As many times as you may hit them, but the tree survives. So similarly, same way, Jiva may go through many experiences. So the Jiva apeta vava kila shariram mriyate nasaha. When you say that the tree perishes, when you cut the tree perishes, it means what? The tree's bhautika sharira is perishing, but not the Jiva which is holding that body is not perishing. Jiva is eternal. So there are two things, statements made. One is the physical body dies, but the Jiva never dies. That's one thing. Second thing is the Shruti Vakya in Chandogya Upanishad says, this is what says, the Jiva never dies when body dies, said in Chandogya Upanishad. That's one thing. Second thing is, Maitreya Brahmana says, Jiva perishes. Just now we saw. Jiva perishes when the body dies away, said by Yajnavalkya. So, are there these two contradictions? No. So, Vidyaranya Muni says, both are correct only. So, one is during Srushti Kala, Srushti time, Jiva will not perish. Entire period of Srushti Kala, Jiva will take Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. He repeatedly takes baths. He enters into newer and newer bodies. Bodies perish, Jiva never perishes. So as long as Srishti is there, the Jiva will continue. That is one thought. But when will Jiva will perish? Jiva will perish when during Videha Mukti. When all the vasanas are Kshiyante Chascha Karmani, Tasmin Drushte Paravare. When he awakens and Videha Mukti takes place, then the Jivatva goes away forever. That is one explanation. So Pralaya Kala, Jiva will continue. And second thing is what? Even after Srishti ends, during Pralaya also Jiva will continue if he had not awakened to the truth. So he will continue, the eternal. Jivatva, Jiva I am talking means individuality. I am separate from totality. I am an individual, limited individual. With that idea, he continues till he awakens to the truth, even during Pralaya also. When the entire universe is dissolved, dissolution of universe takes place, that time also he remains as an individual, merged temporarily in Prakriti. When the next Srishti begins, next Kalpa begins, next Srishti begins, he comes out again. He comes out again, he lives in samsara. So, therefore, Shankaracharya said, Muktirno Shata Janma Koti Sukritaihi Punyairvina Labhyate. We can take many crores of lives, but this liberation is not attained. Mukti is not attained even after crores and crores of yugas and kalpas may go through. Till we awaken to the truth, we cannot be liberated. So in that sense, Chandogya Upanishad is correct when it says Jiva never perishes. So Jiva is Brahman, he remains eternal. Jiva is limited individual, he doesn't remain. When he awakens to truth, he exists as Brahman, not as Jiva. So therefore he says, in this case, Vimoksho na arthaha iti atra na vimoksho arthaha kintu lokantare gatihi. It is not when we say take about the body, the jiva dies, when the body dies, it doesn't mean jiva is literally dying, but jiva is going from one loka to other loka after death of the body. That is the meaning. Now we are entering into another technical subject. Very essential topic, and it is too technical. It runs about for a couple of slokas. What does he says? Let us see now. So we have to be alert now in understanding this particular subject. Naham brahmeti buddheta savinashiti chennatat samanadhikaranyasya bhadayamapi sambhavat. Now see, how can this jiva, no, see for example, when we say aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman, the doubt is, jiva cannot say I am Brahman. Who is Brahman? Changeless, eternal. So the valid doubt of this, what you call Purapakshi is, since Jiva is, listen very carefully, Jiva is immortal, how can a mortal realize I am Brahman? Being a mortal, can you claim I am infinite? So the teacher says this is not a valid doubt, my dear. samanadikaranyasya bhadayam api sambhavat. This is possible. This analysis now we are taking in a new direction now. Technical Purapakshi, a very technical guy. See, once you say Chidabhasa is Jiva, you say no, Chidabhasa is Jiva. So, what is this Aham? When Jiva says Aham, I, it is referring to whom? It is referring to Chidabhasa, not Brahman, no. Jiva says I. That I is referring, meaning of Aham is what? Artvam, etc. So that means when you say I and you, what I am referring to is Jiva only as Aham. In Vyavaharika Bhasha, I am not saying I am Brahman right now. Jiva cannot claim. So therefore, Jiva will never be able to say Aham Brahmasmi. Jiva will never be able to say Aham Brahmasmi. There's a doubt. So na Aham Brahma iti buddhita sa vinashi iti chet. So he says Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, can never be realized by Jiva because he is mortal. Because you are referring to Aham as Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa is Jiva and Jiva is Mithya. Chidabhasa is Mithya. How can this Mithya claim I am Brahman? How come this Mithyatma realize and say I am Brahman? See. So one more thing is, if this is the case, then Tattvamasi Mahavakya, Tvam is Jiva, how can you equate Jiva to Brahma? How can you equate the individual to Brahma Vastu? Think. And one more thing also is there. You say Kutastha will claim I am Brahman. There is no need for Kutastha Chaitanya to claim I am Brahman. And from the standpoint of Kutastha, when there is nothing Anya Vastu, so Kutastha need not claim. Jiva cannot claim. So who is saying this? Aham Brahmasmi. This is the doubt. Now, if such the doubt is raised, that objection cannot stand to inquiry. We can really see that there is some fallacy in that thinking. Because in Mahavakya, Tattvamasi Mahavakya, we must understand properly the inquiry into Mahavakya called Tattvamasi. So this is called Samanadikaranya. There are two kinds of Samanadikaranya. See, Samanadikaranyasya bhadayam api sambhavat. Germany says it is possible through bhadayam bhada samanadikaranyas. So what is Samanadikaranya? There are two types of Samanadikaranya. Aikya Samanadikaranya, Badha Samanadikaranyam. So by application of Badha Samanadikaranyam, we can say that Aham Brahmasmi through Mahavakya Vichara is possible. So what is Samanadikaranyam? Now we have to understand what you mean by Samana Adhikaranam. Now this is actually name given to a relationship between words. In a sentence, sentence is made up of words. So when we know that there are some 2-3 words, Tattvamasi Vakya, 3 words are there. So we have to obtain proper relationship between the words that are used in a sentence. So what is Samanadikaranya? When the words are different words, each word is conveying a different meaning, but they reveal a same object. Very important. So when the words are plenty and all the words are using and defining or indicating this, revealing same object, so they should have different meanings. Each word has different meaning. There are multiple number of words in a sentence. Each word has its own independent meaning, but each word is revealing the same object. Such a relationship among those words, which they have a different meaning, is there, but they all indicate only one vastu. That is called Samanadikaranyam. I suppose a sentence, each word is indicating different words, different, revealing, each word is revealing a different object. It is called Vaiyadikaranyam, opposite to Samanadikaranyam. In Samanadikaranyam also many words are there. In Vaiyadikaranyam also many words are there. Samanadikaranyam also independent meanings are there. Vaiyadikaranyam also independent meaning of every word is there. But in Samanadikaranyam all the words indicate to same vastu, reveal same vastu. In Vaiyadikaranyam they reveal different objects. So in Tattvamasi Mahavakya, what is the Vachyartha and Lakshyartha we talk? One is literal meaning, other is implied meaning. Well, literal meaning is what? Tat means Jiva. What other definitions are there? Tat means Ishvara. Tvam means Jiva. Tat has some qualities, Tvam has some qualities. Jiva is Parichinna, Ishvara is not Parichinna. Ishvara is Sarvavyapi, Sarvajnaha, Sarvashaktiman. Jiva is Alpavyapi, Alpajnaha, Alpashaktiman. So completely different. Tvam is different, Tat is different. But how come these two are one? So implied meaning, when you see, when you analyze the meaning of word Tvam and Tat through Shastra, then the implied meaning they reveal same vastu. So I need not call 3 is equal to 3. Why? I did not write an equation 3 is equal to 3 because 3 is 3. There is no need to prove it. But something is here, Tat and Tvam are equal, we have to show, because apparently they are seemingly different. They appear to be different. But when we work out on that, the implied meaning is same. So in all our Sahasranamas also, they reveal 1000 names. Revealing vastu is only one. One deity only is called by different names. So, therefore, Samanadikaranya Vakya, through Samanadikaranya, in that there are 2 Samanadikaranyas are there. Adikarana means objects. So, Samana Adhikarana means one object only, revealed by using different words. So, As I said, Tvam-pada and Tat-pada both are different, but the indicative meanings, Lakshyartha, implied meaning is consciousness. Therefore, there is one identity between Tat and Tvam. They are not two, they are not equal, they are actually identical. Not identical, identity is established. Identical means two vastus similarly existing. No, there is only identity, the one only, seen as two. So it is called Samanadikaranya Vakya. So how can Jiva and Brahman be one? Refer to one and the same object. Because Jiva is Mithya Vastu, Brahma is Satya Vastu. How can we equate Mithya Vastu and Brahma Vastu? Superficially when we say Vachyartha, it is not possible. So, in this particular case, Vidyarmani says, by application of Bhadaya Samanadikarana, not Aikya Samanadikarana, but we will see now. So, for example, I'll give you. A great teacher has given a very beautiful example, very appealing example. He says, there is a pot, and the person dropped the pot. The pot broken, pot is destroyed, pot is perished. Now I say pot is destroyed, pot is perished, I say. So, when I say pot is destroyed, did I include the clay? Or pot is destroyed? Clay is not included, no? Why clay is not included? Pot is Nama Rupa of the clay. Clay is not destroyed, but pot is destroyed. So I can never include the clay. So Nama Rupa is destroyed, but not the clay. Clay is not destroyed. Suppose I say pot weighs 1 kilo or 2 kilos. When I am taking a 1 kilo weight, did I include the clay or not? Yes, I included the clay. There is nothing in the content in the pot. Simple pot is weighing 2 kilos. So what did you take into account? Clay is added or not? Clay is added. So, very beautifully says, when you say pot is destroyed, I am not including the content of the pot. What is the content of the pot? Clay. When I say pot is destroyed, it doesn't mean clay is destroyed. It means only the Nama Rupa is destroyed. That's one point. So in Vedanta also, Chidabhasa or the Jiva, we can use this word in two ways. Two ways. Very carefully listen. When I say Chidabhasa, when one angle I can include Chit, called Kutastha also, because Chidabhasa cannot independently exist independent of Kutastha Chaitanya, it cannot exist. So what is the essence of Chidabhasa? What is the essence of the pot? Mud. What is the essence of Chidabhasa? Pure Chit, pure existence. Satta is there, no? That easiness is there, no? In the Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa exists. So Nama Rupa is Parivartanam. According to the Vritti, it is changing its color and appears and disappears, all that fine. What is the essence of it? Chit only. So, one way when I use Chidabhasa, sometimes I include Chit. Why? Chidabhasa can never be separated from Chit. Just as pot can never be separated from the mud. So when I include Chidabhasa, when I use the word, when I include Chit, it is called Aikya Samanadikaranyam. I included both. Because it is not independent of Chit. Chidabhasa is not independent of Chit. So this is one way. Suppose you use Chidabhasa excluding the Chit, Nama Rupa in the pot, it destroyed, no? Similarly, when you say Chidabhasa is excluding the Chit when you take, then Mahavakya should be interpreted in another way. It is called Bhada Samanadi Karanyam. Where Bhada means what? You can have to, that is separated from the Chit, and Chidabhasa is rejected. So if you include Chidabhasa with Chit, Chit is included when you say Chidabhasa, it is called Aikya Samanadi Karanyam. When you exclude Chit from Chidabhasa, it is called Badha Samanadi Karanyam. This is what Vijayaranya Muni brought here. Based on the explanation of Badha Samanadi Karanyam, we can explain Tattvamasi Mahavakya clearly stating that Jiva is Brahman. So Aham Brahmasmi should be understood as Badha Samanadi Karanyam, which means that you have mistaken as Chidabhasa is really speaking nothing but original Chit. So we are actually Chidabhasa, I we say, but Chidabhasa is nothing but expression, reflection of original Chit alone. So if I keep that in mind, I reject this, like pot mein Nama Rupa is rejected, I reject this Chidabhasa aspect as an independent entity. It cannot exist independent of Chit. The originally it is Chit alone, it's a Chit's expression, it's a Chit's reflection. Therefore I give up the reflection part and hold on to the original, the Chit, and this is called, this way I can claim I am Brahman. So far what? I exist. I exist means what? Chidabhasa says I am, ego says I am. But where is that existence has come from? Existence is borrowed, taken from Chit. Chit exists. No, Chidabhasa doesn't exist. Like rope and snake. Snake is seen. Snake exists. How can snake exist? Where does it draw from its existence from? It has drawn its existence from the rope. Mutual superimposition. And the gunas of snake are transferred to rope, superimposed on rope, and the rope's existence. Otherwise, how can the snake exist? So existence is drawn from the rope. Similarly, existence of Chidabhasa is taken from Chit. Therefore, it says very clearly that Badha Samanadi Karanyam, if we apply, because when I say Chidabhasa is separate from Chit, there I should apply Badha Samanadi Karanyam, this Bhadyate. This is separated and rejected. And then who claims is I am Brahman, that I am Brahman can claim. So this is the thought. Now this analysis we will take up in our next class further. From 43rd verse we will take up tomorrow. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai.